This is Steve Laffey's Fixing America. And now, broadcasting live from the Fixing America Command Center in Fort Collins, Colorado, here is your host, Steve Laffey.
Good afternoon, America. Steve Laffey. Great Monday afternoon. Glad to have you here at LaffeyRadio.com. Steve Laffey's Fixing America. We got a lot to cover here. There's another one of these shows where we're taking some huge topic, this time Obamacare, the new health care law, and talking about it's hard to sum this thing up. It's hard to sum up Obamacare, except it's really bad. And the genesis of it. You know, sometimes when I used to be the mayor and I would try to do an analogy of how Cranston was left for me when I became a mayor, you know, some people say, oh, it was like they drove a car off a cliff, you know, or it was a train wreck, or all kinds of analogies, usually involving trains and cars, because people understand those kind of stuff. In this particular case, as I look back at Obamacare and the years that we've spent on it, on something that was never going to work no matter what, and it's wrong on so many levels, easier to fix health care in so many other ways. People crying out for a couple of simple things that they could just change. Be cheaper to write checks just to people who didn't have health insurance. Just write checks. Yeah, here's $3,000, here's $4,000. Don't bother us. Easy to do that. Easy just to provide subsidies for people. And yet it dominates the news off and on for how many years now? 6 years? At least with Bill Clinton, he gave up after a while. You know, and Hillary, she never gave up. She'll be back for more, but at least they gave up after a while. It was like a year of agony. This is the best analogy I can come up with for Obamacare is it's like you've got a bunch of people in a car. You don't just tip it over. You tip it over on the train tracks. Then you get out, you leave all the people screaming inside. You grab kerosene and put it on top of the car. And the train's coming down. Here comes a train. And you walk away laughing. That's Obamacare. I can't think of anything more than it's what it is. It's not just the train hitting the wall or something like that. It's like they really had to know they were doing it. And it brings you back to, number one, as we talk about this, sort of the executive problem. And there's lots of problems. There's a moral problem. There's a market problem. There's an incentive problem. There's a cost problem. There's a legitimacy problem. But just the number one problem to start with that we have, you know, many times in my business world or even in my public life, I met people who even ran stuff who didn't have any idea what they were doing. But many people who don't know what they're doing get put in a situation they don't know what they're doing, at least realize they don't know what they're doing. And so what do? Well, they get people who know what they're doing. And then they pretend. I've seen that in investment banking at my old firm. You know, there was one guy who just didn't really know what he was doing. He tried to compensate by getting some people around him. It really didn't work, but at least he tried to figure it out. Saw it in the mayor who was the mayor before me. Saw seeing some governors and U.S. senators. But in the case of Barack Obama, more so than George Bush, and I've criticized both of them probably equally as many shows as we've had. But in this particular case, George Bush at least tried to get some people who had a background of knowing what they were doing. Now, if they were too outspoken, like the guy who ran Alcoa Aluminum, they got rid of him. Reagan did the same thing. If they were too outspoken, like James Watt, they got rid of him. In the case of Obama and Obamacare, he didn't get anybody around him to know what he was doing. I mean, the closest person you can think of, I could be wrong. I may have forgotten somebody. I mean, Larry Summers had some angle of politics of what he was doing. He's a, you know, kind of a bull in a china shop type guy. Not that I'm against that and so forth, but at least he had some inkling probably of the politics of what he was when he was in charge of stuff. I can't think of anybody else. And so you have this problem that as we go, you know, first talking about the website, where you get down to this website deal, and it's impossible to understand. And how he didn't know that it wasn't going to work. Someone had to tell him. He says in a speech, and we're going to go through his speech, a speech last Thursday, which he gave, which I watched most of it and read the entire transcript of. And that there's certain points in there that you can't believe people are talking about. You can't believe he's talking about. It shows, in fact, let's just go to that. It shows how little that our president understands about human nature, business. And throw out just one point. The fact that the president of the United States hasn't fired anybody yet over this. They hadn't gone back and sued somebody, the contractors from Canada who built the website for $600 million. And people, by the way, you could tune us in on like our app. Our app, I just checked it out again. You have an iPhone or something like that, just go to laffeyradio.com and turn it on, get in your car and listen to it as you drive. You can listen to it live streaming. It still works. This website, when we just built it and we've had our own problems, and like any other startup, you haven't noticed hardly any of them out there in the listening world, but I've done some things wrong here on the board to get ready, but it works better than healthcare.gov. A couple of guys putting together a website, and I mean, not really me, a couple other guys, a couple of very talented guys putting together a website, cameras, getting the mics, hooking them up, getting over here, putting up the lights. It still works better, So it's one of those things where if we go through Barack Obama's transcript of his speech, I think we find out a lot. And I don't do this all the time, but I think today it's necessary to go through Barack Obama and what he's been saying. One of the things I hate, by the way, is wearing these glasses and putting them on. And there's times when I've got these glasses on. If you're listening, you can't see me. These are reading glasses like we all get as we get older. But I oftentimes forget to take them off. And then I wonder why I can't see clearly. Not now, but the beginning of his speech. And by the way, he talks about the Philippines. As a little side event about the Philippines and America, we talked about this last week. Great job, America. Out there helping everybody in the Philippines. But guess what the Chinese government offered for their initial offer to help out the people in the Philippines? $100,000. But we'll do another show on that. So here's Barack Obama's transcript. Here's his speech. I don't want to play. I have a bunch of clips we're going to play, but I decided I'd go through this and read some of this and then play some clips of some other people. So he talks about American strength, of course, has always been more than just about what the government can do. Yeah, obviously. And he talks about it's been 6 weeks since Affordable Care Act. He doesn't want to call it Obamacare, obviously. New marketplaces open for business. He says, I think it's fair to say that the role has been rough so far. Rough so far. That's what he says. It's been rough so far. It's been impossible to navigate. He then goes on to make up how many people they've signed up. He says, yesterday the White House announced that in the first month, more than 100,000 Americans successfully enrolled in the new insurance plans. It was actually 26,000. All the other people were in the state plans. The federal government only did 26,000. And he goes on to talk, there's no question there's a real demand for a quality, affordable health insurance. But here's where it really gets me. And there's a lot of things that get me in the speech, and it shows you the mindset of the President of the United States, which is vastly different, I think, than anybody we've had as President of the United States. Anybody. I can't, going back, at least certainly recent history. So the bottom line, he says, is in just 1 month, despite all the problems that we've seen with the website. So despite the problems that are his fault, that he should have been managing, that someone should have been managing, despite that, he says, more than 500,000 Americans could know the security of health care by January 1st, many of them for the first time in their lives. And that's a misnomer. He should have talked about health care insurance. The thing that we have in America that differs us from, I guess, many other countries is that everybody has health insurance. I mean, I'm sorry. See, I said it wrong. Everybody gets health care. Not everybody has health insurance, but everybody gets health care. They may get it in different ways. In fact, how do we know? I mean, well, one way we know is you drive down the highway, no one's lying on the side of the road. Go over to the urgent care center over here. There won't be anybody standing outside that they hadn't seen. They will see everybody. Eventually, everybody gets seen. Does everybody have quality health care? No. Do people wait too long before they go see a doctor because they don't have health insurance? Many times, yes. Do insurance companies, and this was the big problem, do insurance companies, in an effort to make profits, try to put the screws to especially people in the individual marketplace? Of course they do. It's wrong. I mean, it's what they've been doing. That's how they've been incented. Do people, you can go on all day about it, but basically Americans get health care. People who have health insurance, like I always have, we pay for it. I can give you example after example. One time, I took my daughter in Mississippi, northern Mississippi, on a Saturday morning to urgent care, or I forget even what was wrong with it. It was something that we went and saw the urgent care people for. I remember it very well because my relatively brand new Ford F-250 pickup truck, the Cabela Special Edition, there was a specialized hailstorm that hit basically only at this one place and destroyed the top of my truck. So I remember distinctly going there. But I remembered more later was since I lived in Rhode Island at the time and saw an out-of-state person, I ended up getting a bill and opened the bill in Rhode Island when I got back up to Rhode Island. And the bill was for like $700. And I stared at the bill and I said, this is outrageous. Because I remember that my daughter, let's say she was 10, 11, whatever it was at the time, 10, 11, 12. I remember she never saw the doctor. Whatever it was, we went in the room. There was a nurse practitioner. She got some aspirin, or it wasn't aspirin. It was something that she got, whatever the malady was. But I remember distinctly saying, we don't have to see a doctor? She said, oh, no, I can get this. She went out, got the prescription. We went and got a prescription for whatever it was. And it was like $700. So I called the lady on the phone. I called a lady down in Mississippi. And I got their insurance side on the phone. And I said, listen, I'm not paying the $700 bill. And the lady said, well, that's okay. We have a plan for people who can't pay. I mean, we have you have to put forth your income and so forth. And I said, ma'am, it's not that I can't pay. I'm not going to pay this bill. We never saw a doctor. We were in northern Mississippi where the land costs are low. We were in a one-story building. We got a prescription and went. I'll send you $50. That lady on the phone has, that part of country, has so many people that they just write down to zero. Well, I never got another bill. They said, oh, okay. Zero. I expected to get another bill and then have it go to my credit agency, something like that. And I would have sent them $50. I've done that in the past. I'm just like, no, I'm not. I want to get someone else on the phone. They just wrote it off. So as if I didn't have insurance, which I did, and I do. So that tells you what goes on. When the people who have insurance right now, this is the plan before Obamacare. The plan really isn't, it's still a pretty bad plan. But in some respects, it's a plan that everybody has health care. And we, the people who have health insurance, pay more on our bill because the people who don't, we get stuck with the bill. That's still a better plan than what we are now facing. Because what we are now facing is a plan that's being put in that simply won't work. And this is the part about it. We'll get to the part about not understanding human nature. But I want to talk about the executive problem. There's a problem with a lot of these people who are just legislators, who've never been in executive positions. They don't understand that how the real world works. In Barack Obama's case, even in his second term when things weren't working well, he simply refused to get people around him who know how things work. And that's why he ultimately is the ideologue that he is. Anyway, Steve Laffey's Fixing America. We're at LaffeyRadio.com. We got a lot more to talk about, not just the history, not just the executive problem. Follow us on Facebook at Laffey Radio. By the way, thousands are. We appreciate it. We really appreciate it because we're doing something different here that hasn't been done really. Isn't done in radio or TV. We're giving you solutions to problems. We're going to get to some today at the end of the show. So also follow us on Twitter, Laffey Radio also. Just think Laffey Radio, Laffey Radio. You can't miss us. We'll take a quick break and be right back. Thank you.
Stay tuned. Steve Laffey's Fixing America returns after these commercial messages.
I am an American soldier.
I'm a warrior and a member of a team.
I serve the people of the United States and live the Army values.
I will always place this first.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never accept defeat.
I will never quit.
I will never leave a fallen comrade.
I am disciplined.
I am disciplined.
Physically and mentally tough.
Trained and proficient in my warrior tasks and drills.
I always maintain my arms, my equipment, and myself.
I'm an expert, and I'm a professional.
I stand ready to deploy, engage, and destroy the
Enemies of the United States of America in close combat.
I am a guardian of freedom and the American way of life.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
I am an American soldier.
There's strong, and there's Army strong. See what it takes at GoArmy.com.
This year, firefighters like Fire Chief James Hall will battle wildfires around the country in hopes of containing them. But firefighters can't do it alone.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile, where it can ignite and destroy your home and community.
Get fire adapted. Learn simple steps you can take now to reduce wildfire damage later at fireadapted.org. A public service message brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council. Learn more at fireadapted.org.
This is Nnamdi Asamoah. I play football for the Philadelphia Eagles, but what I do off the field with United Way might be more important. I'm a volunteer tutor and mentor. Why? Because over 1 million kids a year drop out of school, and that's not okay. It takes 12 years to create a graduate, but it takes about the same time to create a dropout. And the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be me, or it could be you. Studies show that if we get to these kids earlier, their chances are better, and kids who read well by 3rd grade are more likely to graduate. So join me in United Way. Suit up and take the pledge. Become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor, because when a child succeeds, we all succeed. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge at unitedway.org. Brought to you by United Way, the Ad Council, and the National Football League.
And now, back to the Fixing America radio program with your host, Steve Laffey.
The president has been apologetic. He's been accountable for saying something that was not the case. You were Speaker of the House. You, in many ways, were seen as an architect and a key ally on this. And this is said back in June of 2009 on MSNBC. Watch.
What we are talking about is affordable, quality, accessible health care for all Americans. It's about choice. If you like what you have and you want to keep it, you have the choice to do that.
Are you accountable for saying something that turned out not to be correct?
Well, it's not that it's not correct. It's that if you want to keep it, and it's important for the insurance company to say to people, this is what your plan does. It doesn't prevent you from being discriminated against on the basis of pre-existing conditions. It doesn't lifetime limits, annual limits, and the rest.
There's a bottom line to this, which I think people.
Wow, there's Nancy Pelosi. Talking to with Mr. Gregory on Meet the Press, I guess, this weekend. This is all these clips will play. It'll be very recent clips. Sometimes I go way back. Boss goes way back to find these things. But Steve Laffey's Fixing America. Thanks for coming back. Just sitting there, listen. You kind of get mesmerized a little bit by Nancy Pelosi, who sums up sort of the second problem of Obamacare. It's not just the executive problem, which we've been talking about. There's a lack of executive knowledge by the number one executive in the world. He just doesn't have any real executive experience, and it looks as though on the job after 5 or 6 years he hasn't learned. I mean, the number one thing I would have done if I wouldn't have been involved in this, but would have made sure the website worked. Any campaign website. I mean, I've had people come to me about these campaign, even just little websites. Laffey's Irish Animals. Before you tell anybody about it, you just kind of get on and make sure it works. They didn't get people just to jam in there, just to everybody on the phone in Delaware. Let's see how many, let's get 10,000 people of our friends just to try to jam it. Let's hypothetically, try to take it down, because people are going to try to take it down. Let's test 3 levels of security. All those things should have been done. The fact that they hadn't been done and no one's got fired is an executive problem, but it's also an ideologue problem. And it's Nancy Pelosi just sitting there talking about the same stuff Barack Obama talked about, that no one was going to lose their policy. It's amazing that, by the way, both sides of the aisle didn't publicize stuff like that for years. I'll give you an example. Today, just now, I was actually working out. And I didn't know this, but then again, it's not my job to know this. It's actually U.S. senators, U.S. congressmen, the media, the president's job to know this stuff. But Marco Rubio, the United States Senator Senator Rubio out of Florida, I guess he just figured out that there's a provision, and he's letting people know, and he's putting in a bill, and good in some respects. There's a provision in the health care bill that when, not sort of if, the health insurance companies, the private companies, lose money by taking in very unsound or unhealthy people and not taking in a lot of healthy people, that they get paid back. It's a 3% loss ratio, they get paid back X. If there's an 8% loss ratio, they get paid back Y. This is coming to light like now. And they're going to introduce this bill, I guess, next week, but it's coming out, just made the wires. It's making all the news. I'm sure tonight on TV that all the talking heads will be talking about this. The bailout provision, this is what one article writes about, was designed to prevent a death spiral by encouraging insurance companies to keep premiums low and stick with the exchanges if things go south. And so now it looks like they're going to call in that card, and there's going to be a bill to stop them from doing that. So now it's getting to the point where, this is the ideologue part that we're talking about, Nancy Pelosi. Healthcare is just too big. You're going to have some simple rules if you want to take healthcare to another level that's better, cheaper, and making people understand what it's all about. And I'll give you some examples. What do people when I'm flying on a plane or I'm with people and talk to people who are from other states, and as I moved here and so forth, and I figured out how hard it is to get health insurance from state to state, what are some of the simple things that people would like? That would be, the overwhelming 75-25, that if you went to a Democrat, went to a Republican, what would they really like? First of all, they don't want this complication, because many people think they have a decent plan. And people who don't have it, in many ways, they are the free riders, and we've got to do something about the free riders. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I don't like paying an extra 20, 30, depending on what state you're in. As I told you a story from last segment, that it's probably 100% more, 200% more when you're in some parts of the country, because so many people don't have insurance or aren't paying. And when you're here, where I live in Fort Collins, it's relatively low because most people have it and most people are paying. Vast majority than, say, in northern Mississippi where I was, or Memphis, Tennessee, that whole area. And a lot more poverty and so forth, and people don't have health insurance. They get health care that we help pay for, but they don't get health insurance. And we want to have a better system for them. But the number one thing two things. It gets back to this very simple concept. Whether you have bad luck or bad genes, you don't want to be penalized. And I'm all for that. I mean, what is bad luck? Well, bad luck is simply that I go out later today, even though I've got my big F-250 pickup truck, which is much safer than a tiny little car, and I go through a green light. Well, it's not snowing here, but say it was. A guy who's trying to obey the law, he's going the speed limit, didn't put on his snow tires. He gets on ice and he slides right through and smashes into me, and boom, I'm in bad shape, let's say. I'll say he's in bad shape. Say I'm in bad shape. Just simply bad luck. Could be walking down the street on a sidewalk. Car comes across the sidewalk, boom. One of my buddies was walking at a green light. Big truck took a left-hand turn. I mean, he was walking with the light. He was right. Because of the vision, the guy really wasn't drunk. 2 o'clock in the afternoon, dry pavement, bang, whacked him up. Hurt badly. So that's the bad luck thing. Bad luck isn't necessarily whipping around, at 100 miles an hour on a motorcycle, swerving through the lanes on Route 95 or Route 25. That's not really bad luck when the guy goes off. That's just stupidity. So bad luck. We want to insure people for bad luck. What about bad genes? Well, I don't mean bad genes, but some people have, by the grace of God, it's not in my family, but some people are predestined at a higher rate to get breast cancer in their family. Well, we don't want them to not have any kids, and we want them to be taken care of and so forth. It's just the way it goes, and years from now, maybe it won't be in their family. Maybe they'll marry into another family and doesn't have it and so forth. But right now, you've got a young lady that really may have such a terrible time. We want to take care of those people. We don't want to say, no, we're not going to, hopefully we're not going to get to that, with all this rise in technology. So those are the two things we want, the most things that people talk about. And then, of course, one goes along with the other. And the third thing that goes along with it is that if you're traveling across or moving across state lines, you don't want to have to go to another state and start all over again, where the state can say, no, we're not going to insure you because you have a kid that's sick. How many people have I met who have that problem? I was on a plane I hate to sound like Bill Clinton. I was on a plane, and I think Bill Clinton just makes up the people he talks to. But I was on a plane coming from Rhode Island, connecting through Washington, D.C., got on a plane, lady from Virginia with their family, struck up a conversation. They wanted to move to Colorado. They both had jobs in the high-tech sector. They couldn't take them because they couldn't get health insurance in Colorado. So they stayed in Virginia. And think about the lack of mobility. One of the things about America, one of the reasons that we do so well is we're very mobile. I mean, some parts of the country aren't, but as a society, if there's a great job somewhere else, people do go. In Glasgow, Scotland, believe me, I got friends up there, jobs were closed down. Last remaining money management job closed down. Bothwell Asset Management, the guy who ran it, great guy, he was never taking the position in London. He's a Scotsman. Yeah, I think he wanted to go split the countries up and go to war again. It was like Braveheart, right? So he wasn't leaving. Well, our mentality in America isn't generally like that. We leave. We go. And so those are three. There's three things that if people sat in a room and said, okay, here's three things that we've got to try to do. What's the fourth thing? Fourth thing would be, let's get people healthier. That's what we want to do. We want to get people healthier. So how do we do that? Why don't we put the health insurance companies in charge of getting people healthier? Why don't we reward them for getting people healthier? Why don't we have a year of Jubilee where we say on December 31st, everybody who wants to get health insurance can't be denied, and every health insurance company, due to that person's medical loss record, is going to be assigned a number for that person. Steve Laffey, the healthy guy at 172, blah, 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 doesn't have any problems, takes care of himself. He's going to get assigned $4,000. I don't know what I'd be, right? The 500-pound man who hasn't taken care of himself, he drinks and smokes, he's got type 2 diabetes and so forth. He's a $100,000 guy. All right, well, start with $100,000. What's the health insurance company's job next year, along with that individual? Get him down to 90,000, then 80, then 70. Rather than what goes on in health insurance today. And what is that? What goes on in health insurance today is that people just treat problems. I know from my own experience that people just say, after I've had a problem, something I could have done by changing my diet, people just try to give you pills. Doctors are busy. But if we rewarded health insurance companies on their loss ratio, that they could make money by getting people healthier, then guess what? That's what they do. People do what they're incented to do. I mean, there's no better example. Back in my private sector, the firm Morgan Keegan, I became the research director, had never made the Wall Street Journal All-Star Survey. Never discussed it, never had award-winning analysts, not one. Year and a half later, we were number one in batting average in the Wall Street Journal, and some guy in CNBC was like, what's going on at Morgan Keegan? He's Goldman Sachs, Payne Webber at the time probably. All these other firms that existed were high in the rankings. Now, we didn't have the most amount of analysts. I changed the compensation scheme. I rewarded all the analysts differently. I rewarded them much greater for picking stocks, which helped us gain assets because we picked stocks better, helped the focus list, all these things that we were doing. We got to do that in healthcare. We got to change the incentive system. So there's four things in this segment that I think most people would say, not everybody, by the way. I mean, some people want to go back to the wild, wild west. I'm more of a real. We're not going back to the wild, wild west. We're not going to leave people on the side of the road. We're not going to deny them entrance into an emergency room, even though they don't belong there because they got a cough on a Friday night. We're not going to do that. Anyway, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back with some more solutions and some more clips. It's Steve Laffey. Steve Laffey's Fixing America. We're at LaffeyRadio.com. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Steve Laffey's Fixing America returns after these commercial messages.
No one is better suited and more prepared to guard America in the century ahead than the U.S. Air Force. Above all, we defend America. Above all, we defend freedom. Above all, we are warriors who dominate air, space, and cyberspace. Above all, we are brothers and sisters who proudly stand together. Above all, we ensure victory before the battle even begins. Above all, there is nothing our friends respect more and our enemies fear more than the power of the U.S. Air Force. Above all, we stand ready as the decisive force for the 21st century. Above all, we are the U.S. Air Force.
Go, Caleb! Come on, hit a homer, Jesse!
Let's go, guys!
Hey, did you guys know that kids who play sports earn more money when they grow up?
Of course. I knew that.
Hey, did you guys know that kids who read books have a bigger vocabulary?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Wow, Jinx. Did you guys know that friendly children have more friends?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's true. I knew that. Did you guys know that winter babies are better at music?
Everyone knows that.
Oh, yeah?
It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, so obvious.
Oh, hey, guys, did you know that most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Huh, I didn't know that.
I'm pretty sure I knew that.
I'm pretty sure you didn't.
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right car seat at the right age and size. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Driving has a rhythm all its own. Don't wreck it with a text. Before you get behind the wheel, silence your phone. Or better yet, designate a texter. For more text-free driving tips, visit stoptextstoprex.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration.
And now, back to the Fixing America radio program with your host, Steve Laffey.
Jay and Gloria Cancer are fighting a battle against cancer together. Gloria Cancer has 5 brain tumors and tumors in her bones. Now they have another battle to fight, trying to keep their health insurance.
If this letter make more problems for us that we don't need in this moment.
This came on us like a ton of bricks.
The Cancers received this letter in the mail and explains Gloria Cantor's health insurance will end next summer due to the Affordable Care Act, but after promises from President Obama.
If you like your plan, you can keep your plan.
The Cantors now feel betrayed. After the insurance company drops them, it will offer them a different plan, which it admits will be more expensive. The Cantors are especially worried because their doctors cannot assure them that MD Anderson will still accept the new plan.
All right, so everybody should be upset about that. I mean, you can't even play the clip without, and this is going to happen to millions. This is, by the way, what's been happening many times to that family. People like that in that family, but what's happening to them is unconscionable. And by the way, to get into the topics of what's going on today, it's almost impossible to fix. So these people might have to get new doctors. Imagine someone having several different forms of cancer. You trust your doctor; they're working with you, doing whatever you do, whatever they're doing, whatever the oncology people are doing, whatever they're telling you to do. You're probably traveling. You got family. Can you imagine adding this onto someone's life? Now, this has been added onto people's lives many times because there's been caps on how much people can spend on a health insurance problem, and after you get over that, so people come down with catastrophic problems. This is part of the problem that's been going on in America. They get over $1 million or $2 million, and it isn't covered anymore. And then, by the way, they can never move. So that and this mobility that I've been talking about here at Steve Laffey's Fixing America, LaffeyRadio.com. And by the way, after we're done, we just put this stuff up in the air, and you can just play it on demand on your app when you're driving around. We put up a new Laffey Buzz today, which is a blog site that we have. We got the Laffey Minute went up again today. And Wednesday, we'll put up a brand new Fixing America Presents. Check that one out. There'll be a couple coming up. I just did a couple of them. It's those aren't done live, but there's things that we do with a little bit more emphasis. But we're talking here about Obamacare. We've gone through several solutions that seem to be easy, but because of the ideological problem that we have, that people want the government to control this. They want to control your life. Rather than just say, listen, hey, the federal government's involved. For example, here's another part we got to talk about. We have to talk about, because Obamacare and health care in this country, funded by the federal government, is about 10% of the gross domestic product, 10% of the budget or so. and it's going to go to 20%. So if it's 10% of federal spending now and going to 20, what's going to happen to all these other things? I mean, shows we've done on debt. So we need to cap it at 10% and get everybody's mind around that. I mean, you could cap it at 9% or 11, but if Germany does everything they do at 11 for a basic plan, but that's the limit. No more involvement. And if we can grow the economy faster, another concept I like all the time to talk about is that we're all in. Everybody's in. The economy can grow at 4%. Believe me, with the power of compounding, then we can put into a basic plan. So if you had a 10% of the federal government, everybody got a basic plan who wanted it. By the way, if you don't want it, you just don't want it. You can buy more above it with the provisions that you can't get kicked out, et cetera, et cetera. You can buy, a better plan. Then everybody can have a basic plan. But if you just give everybody a basic plan without doing some of the other things we talked about, which is getting people to start controlling their weight, for example, to take better care of themselves and get insurance companies involved. And then after years that go by, when some people simply won't do it, they simply won't. I mean, the basic health care plan in America will not call for, I hate to say this, it won't call for people whipping around on motorcycles at 80 miles an hour. I mean, why am I taking that risk? Why should I be taking that? Why should the average person who doesn't do that take that risk? So you got to be able to start charging people more. Why should I be paying for smoking? I mean, what we want is to take care of people who get in bad luck, who end up with bad genes. I'd say bad, I don't mean to insult anybody, but to have a predestination to come down with the cancer we just played this clip of. But what you get is the ideological stuff. In fact, I haven't even played any clips yet today. I'm going to go through the whole day. I won't play any. But here's Jim Carney right here. Let's play Jim Carney and listen to his ideological take on things.
What is not, I think, an effective fix is one that, as envisioned on the Hill by some legislation, that would simply tell insurers that they can sell substandard plans to anybody who might purchase them, because that would cause more problems and create more problems and do more harm than any good it would do for individuals in this market. Broadly speaking, that applies to the Upton legislation. Broadly speaking, that we do not see that as fixing the problem. We see that as throwing the baby out with the bathwater.
I don't even understand the analogy, the baby with the bathwater. But beyond that, the ideological presentation of the president and the very far left people and the Democrats on this issue is that everybody has a substandard plan, and they don't see that as being. They want people to have better plans, even though people don't want to sign up for them, even though the cost is out of control, even though there's no caps on what people are spending, even though health insurance companies aren't changing the way that they actually come and help. And even though there has been legislation put in that they can still make money, even though this thing's a disaster. And so this whole thing is led to sort of this legitimacy problem. I mean, think about it. And there's a lot of other issues that are being affected by this. Foreign policy will get affected by this. Just because when people look at our country and say, these people aren't serious about this. This has been going on for years. Bad enough what's happened recently with Syria and so forth, and we've talked about that. But all these things have repercussions if America, the great superpower, isn't being viewed as someone who knows what they're doing. So we've got to put a cap on the federal spending. And until someone actually is willing to mention that, and nobody is, okay? Another thing that Jim Carney talks about is this Upton plan. And the Upton plan is Congressman Upton, who put in a plan that everybody can keep it for another year. And it went through the House, and 39 Democrats voted for it, and now they're going to try to take it to the Senate and so forth. Because politically, the problem of that is that if it ever passed and the president who won't sign it signed it, you still have a total disaster in healthcare. Even getting health insurance companies back to doing this because they all have to go through different state laws. But then the Republicans will own part of this healthcare disaster, whereas up until now, for the Republican Party, they haven't voted on any of it, ever, which has been good for them. They hadn't voted on it in some sense. It's a great issue for them that there's no cohort, no one down in Florida, no one in Washington State, no one up in Maine, and no one down in southern part of California who's a legislature at the federal level who's voted for any part of this Obamacare. It's very telling. It would have been, by the way, ideologically good for Obama to make sure he changed some of these laws to get something passed that had bipartisan support. At least Clinton tried to do that. Reagan tried to do that. But this ideologue that we have running the country won't. He won't do that. He doesn't see it that way. And unfortunately for him, it's simply not going to work. So, you know, we've gone through different parts of the stuff, and I want to get back though to one thing about some of these penalties and how the part about our president, the people who pass this stuff in Congress, the people who are still for it, they've been put some penalties in, and they don't understand how people will get around these penalties. I read a great article on this, and I was thinking about it. But just so you know what the penalties are, just so everybody knows what the penalties are, you know, it's $95 a person to not pay your health insurance bill, or 1% of income with a max penalty of $285 next year. So, of course, people aren't going to do it, just pay the penalty, I suppose. And it goes to 2016, by the way, the maximum penalty goes up to $2,000. So more people would say, oh my God, I don't want to pay the penalty. But look at some of the exemptions that they put in that people don't know about for non-compliance. For example, certain individuals will be exempt from Obamacare at healthcare.gov. You may qualify for an exemption of these penalties of getting health insurance. Remember, they want everybody to get one. If you're uninsured for less than 3 months of the year, okay? Lowest price coverage available to you would cost more than 8% of your household income. You don't file a tax return because your income tax is too low. You're a member of the Indian tribes, it looks like. You're a ministry with a healthcare sharing ministry. You're in a certain religious sect. You're incarcerated in prison. You're not lawfully present in the United States. So also, if your income is less than 133% of the federal poverty level, you're relieved of this penalty. Then there are other hardship examples, which is crazy. Your hardship example, of course, if you're homeless, if you're evicted in the last 6 months or facing eviction. Here's number 3. If you received a shut-off notice from a utility company. So here's all you have to do to get out of this. You don't pay your utility bill for like 5 months. Don't get shut down. Get the shutdown notice. Keep the notice. Then pay your bill, pay the back bill, whatever, to the utilities, your electric bill, whatever. Keep that, attach it to your tax returns, and don't pay the penalty. The absolute denial of human nature by President Obama and everybody around him to not see this, and everybody who passed this law. Thousands of people will do this. People figure stuff out. Americans are smart. Humans are smart. They figure out their way around it. Then you've got, here's number 8. Let's say you can get around this by having medical expenses you couldn't pay, with a C, not wouldn't. I told you a story about me, wouldn't. You couldn't pay in the last 24 months. So you go to the doctor, the hospital, get a bill, don't pay it. Affects your credit, of course, probably. Your credit score, maybe. Maybe you don't care. So how is the government going to know if you just didn't pay it? Remember, you couldn't pay it in the last 24 months. So you just put it on your taxes, you couldn't pay it. I mean, listen, this could go on. There's more hardships that we can all get around. If you file for bankruptcy in the last 6 months, you had a fire or flood that could substantially damage your property. You had the death of a close family member. Heaven forbid, that happens to people. So when you add up all of these things, you get to the point where people will get around this law. And now you're going to need more IRS people. And I guess they're hiring 17,000 more. We've already done a show on the IRS. 17,000 people with more power. So it's not simple. It's complicated. It keeps getting more complicated. Anyway, Steve Laffey's Fixing America at Laffey Radio. We're going to take one more break, come back with some more solutions, a couple more clips, because there are solutions to this, and we got to get to them. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Steve Laffey's Fixing America returns after these commercial messages.
So, Jacqueline.
Yes, Mom?
I wanted to talk to you about something and... Oh, wait. Hold on. I just got a text. Oh, there's another one. Wow. Busy me. So, anyway...
Oh, wait, Mom. I just got a message. My friends keep commenting on my comment. Oh, there's another one. So many comments on my comment.
Oh, I can't wait to watch TV tonight. Playoffs!
Hey, guys, check out my new video game.
Wait,
Wait.
Mom, what?
What? hold
What'd you say? Wait a second, what?
This weekend, unplug. Take your family to the forest. There's nothing in the world like experiencing nature firsthand. Trees, paths, bluebirds, streams. Getting closer to nature can get you closer to your family. To find the forest nearest you, go to discovertheforest.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service and the Ad Council.
I'm always up for a challenge. It's the feeling of accomplishment that drives me. And there's no better challenge than serving part-time in the Coast Guard Reserve. I protect my country, work with the best and brightest. I get great pay and benefits in return. The Coast Guard Reserve is important work. I get to serve my community, and it's always rewarding.
If you were born ready, there's a new challenge waiting for you. Learn about serving part-time at gocoastguard.com/reserve.
Today in school, I learned a lot. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me. In English, I learned that I'm disgusting. And in physics, I learned that I'm a loser.
Today in school, I learned that I'm ugly and useless. And in gym, I learned that I'm pathetic and a joke. In history, I learned that I'm trash.
Today in school, I learned that I have no friends.
In biology,
In English, I learned that I make people sick. And at lunch, I learned that I sit on my own because I smell. In chemistry, I learned that no one likes me.
In biology, I learned that I'm fat and stupid. And in math, I learned that I'm trash. The only thing I didn't learn in school today?
The only thing I didn't learn today?
The only thing I didn't learn
is why no one ever helps.
Kids witness bullying every day. They want to help, but they don't know how. Teach them how to stop bullying and be more than a bystander at stopbullying.gov. A message from the Ad Council.
And now, back to the Fixing America radio program with your host, Steve Laffey.
Obamacare mess is converging today on a whole host of fronts. CNN's Dana Bash reporting that House Democrats unloaded on officials from the White House at a meeting on Capitol Hill. They asked when the website is finally going to be fixed. Perhaps more importantly, they demanded something solid by Friday on reestablishing health coverage for the millions of people who have lost it after the president promised they would not lose it. So largely as a result of that broken promise, Barack Obama's approval rating has hit an all-time low, 39%. And look at this, a majority of Americans, 52%, believe the president is not honest and trustworthy.
I'm not sure he cares. Steve Laffey has Steve Laffey's Fixing America. Unlike most people, and by the way, there are certain situations where as you're a leader, you shouldn't care. You know, if you're in the middle of World War II and you're Harry Truman or you're FDR and so forth, and you got to get some things done, you can't be looking at public opinion. And most polls, you know, they go up and down, But for the President of the United States, talking about Obamacare, his signature issue, because of his ideological nature on this, he's stuck. He's really stuck. And he's got big credibility problems. And in fact, I have to play one more. One clip I've been wanting to play here for a little while. Play clip one. This is John Dickinson over at CNN.
News Political Director John Dickinson is with us. John, good morning.
Morning, Charlie.
So after all of this and after this press conference, where does the president stand with the American people?
Well, first he has a credibility problem, which is that this signature claim he made about being able to keep your insurance, that is still wobbly. He's trying to fix that. He's got a political problem in that his party is grinding on him, and he's also got an operational problem, which is that he's not sure he's getting the right information because of this website disaster. He admitted that he didn't know it was going to be as bad as it was, and he's also then finally got a legacy problem because he said, I've got to win back some credibility with the American people. That's awfully hard to do, winning back credibility once you've lost it. There aren't a lot of opportunities that come, and that's why we put a big gold star to this end of November date that they've set for the website working. Why does that matter? The website has to work to have the Affordable Care Act work. But also, when they roll out whether it is working or not, that's another credibility test, and that's really at the heart of this for him.
And it is, and it talks, now the reporters will talk about the legacy problem and what people will think about him and so forth in 20 years and 40 years. It won't be much when the history books are written. The foreign policy of our country has been a disaster. The economy is missing 10 million jobs. the president, and this gets down to this Obamacare, spent so much time on this. We have a country, remember, we have a country has spent so much time on this. Months of debate, all the way to the Supreme Court, where John Roberts ruled it was a tax, even though it wasn't passed as a tax. Of course, then they went and said it was a tax in some places and not a tax in other places. And that Supreme Court decision was a total disaster. Don't even know how we lost a lot of respect. A lot of people lost a lot of respect because the president basically used the bully pulpit in front of John Roberts and other people to threaten them. Threaten them with what? I don't know. And how it affected, why it affected John Roberts, we don't know. But we know that this can't be the solution. And one of the reasons, it goes back to something as simple as a paper I wrote in college. I wrote a paper about the capitalists, not capitalists, but I wrote a paper about the Soviet Union and their production system. And I wrote a part of it about making nails. This is what happens when you do everything top down. Because the Soviet Union would basically just say, we need X pounds of nails. This is 1955. I did this paper in 83. I still have it somewhere. I gotta go find it. I'll go find it. It's over there somewhere. And but what they did was they didn't tell people how to build nails or how many nails to build or how big the nails need to be. And people started making nails like 6 feet long. They put one nail on the back of a truck and send it somewhere. And said we made this many tons of nails today. Just a giant nail that you could use it on a railroad track. So people didn't get nails and everybody was what was going on. This is what's going on with Obamacare. If it's all top down, it's not going to work. Why don't we have a system? And by the way, people, I'm going to play one more clip. This is Kirsten Powers from the Daily Beast reporter. By the way, last clip was CBS, not CNN. But this is a good clip. Let's play Kirsten Powers. We'll come back and talk about it.
What about that? I'd say my blood pressure goes up every time they say that they're protecting us from substandard health insurance plans because there is nothing to support what they're saying. I've talked about how I'm losing my health insurance. If I want to keep the same health insurance, it's going to cost twice as much. There's nothing substandard about my plan. All the things that they say that are not in my plan are in my plan. All of the things that they have listed, there's no explanation for the doubling of my premiums other than the fact that it's subsidizing other people. They need to be honest about that's the reason they don't want to change it. It's because they're basically taking the people who are responsible enough to get health insurance in the individual market and asking them to subsidize other people. So they're taking young, healthy people and asking them to subsidize other people. I don't think that's going to last, frankly. I think they're trying to buy time until they think they're going to reach this next deadline, and I don't think they're going to reach it. And when they don't reach
November
it,
30th
when they don't reach it, I think there's going to be an absolute. I mean, if you have now not just senators who are up for re-election calling, for this to be fixed. So I think they're going to have to respond to that.
Want to give up?
Going to give up. And so you combine what she just said about the talking about the substandard plan. She's losing her health insurance, it looks like. She must be an independent person like me. And she's going to pay a lot more for it. And her blood is boiling. Imagine the articles she's going to be writing and the speeches she's going to be giving. But back to the old Soviet Union and the nail situation. It's people, they don't understand in the White House or in Congress. I'm not sure the Republicans understand this, but the massive tax code that we've talked about. Many people who are making, say, a family of four are making 30 grand. They're going to be going into on the margin during this plan. They're going to be going into like a 60% marginal tax rate. Why? Because they're going to be having, as the income grows, they'll be losing the subsidy for Obamacare, right? So they'll be paying more money for health insurance as they go from $30,000 to say $40,000, and then the earned income tax credit, whether we like it or not, exists. They're going to be losing that. So what's their incentive? So all the economic incentives are mixed up in this plan. Look at the people who have employees. They're going to be better off, especially if they're people making $30,000 a year. They're going to be better off sending them out, doing away with health insurance. They're going to get an $8,000 subsidy going to the Barack Obama's plan. Maybe the employer pays a $2,000 penalty. They can really have a meeting where they sit down with the employees and say, listen, you're making 30 grand. Here's how we can make 36. 8 minus 2. Real simple math. And then you talk about how many people who have 48, employees, 30 employees, who are looking not to get past 50. What are they going to do? Because after 50, you got to get, you got to do this thing. You got to be in this plan. Well, you're going to find people calling up accountants like I do, saying, how do I have 2 companies? How do I have 4 companies? I make those guys over there in one company. I put those guys over another company. We'll get 2 different spaces. It's okay. Our rent's coming out due, but our lease is up. We'll just chop it in half and put up a wall. Call it something LLC. People will go all around and we'll start to look like Italy. And I'm not making fun of the Italians. I got some great friends. I love going to Italy. But do you know what they do in Italy? How bad because of the top-down control? What happens? They just, with the mail, every year or two, my Italian friends say they just throw all the mail away. The mail that hasn't been delivered, they just burn it, throw it away. So it's like a Costanza thing out of like Seinfeld, out of an old Seinfeld episode. That's the whole nation. And that's where we're going to be on healthcare. So to sum up, what's the solutions? Well, the solution is not. I believe it's not for Republicans to come up with a bill with slight fixes. That's not going to get them anywhere. In fact, it's going to hurt them because they're going to be tagged with it now if that goes through. You're going to have to scrap this whole plan. We're going to have to go back to what works. We're going to have to say to the American people, the federal government's locked in at 10% to make up a number. A lot of this comes from, by the way, Larry Kotlikoff's another purple plan of his that he and I discussed years ago. It's in one of his books, I guess. And great guy, by the way. He has a website too, but I'm not here to advertise him today. But he's a great guy. I disagree with him on some things, but agree with him on a lot. Especially this thing about we talk about healthcare, but people have to have their own doctors. It's not going to work for someone else to take away your doctors, like we've heard here today, where people with cancer are getting their doctors taken away, their plans taken away. Can't have it. Won't have it. So we've got to take care of bad luck and bad genes. We've got to have health insurance to change what they're doing. We've got to have a system where they just can't throw people off. Fine. But once we have a system where they can't throw people off, we, the people, have to take responsibility. And we've got to go to people and say, we've got to take responsibility. You, sir, you, ma'am, have got to take responsibility better for your health care because we just assigned to you December 31st that you're a $100,000 health care person. And by the way, maybe through no fault of your own. Could have been $1 million person. But that health insurance company's job is to get that cost down by getting you healthier. And you've got to participate too. So if you're doing some sit-ups and joining a gym and whatever it might be to help, if you're not drinking whole milk and you're drinking soy milk like I do, then you're helping. But the problem with all this is no one's involved. The people of America aren't involved. They're getting whacked. They're getting whacked with a stick every day. But they're not involved in the solution. By the way, we haven't even talked about, the practice of defensive medicine. We've got to put malpractice laws in, like they have in Texas, or don't take Texas as but somewhere else, where we can't have everybody getting sued because they didn't do this procedure. We overdo procedures. They try to do them on me. They do them on you. They don't need to do all these procedures. And sometimes I say, no, don't do it. And they're like, well, then of course you blow through your health insurance if you have an individual plan or the cap or whatever it is. And you're like, oh, go ahead and do it. Right? It's like in the government. I buy the extra paper clips. We got 1 month to go. We have a paperclip budget. Buy them. So these are the kind of things that have to be put into a healthcare plan. But without putting a cap on what we all spend from the federal government to give everybody some kind of simple plan. And then tell people as the economy grows, if we keep it at 10% to make up a number. And remember, it'd still be more than anybody else really spends. Right? But you can go buy your own plan. No one can stop you. You can buy one above that. And then what do we do about, we got to answer the question. There's all the extreme examples. What do we do about the guy who doesn't get a health insurance plan and he's on the side of the road and we pick him up and we take him to the hospital? Well, you just have to have a randomization process. It's pretty easy where X insurance company gets that guy. Anyway, those are the solutions. You've got to get to him. It's Steve Laffey. Steve Laffey's Fixing America. We're out of time. LaffeyRadio.com. Tune us in. Tune this show up. Send some clips of the smaller versions of Laffey at Laffey Radio, like Fixing America Presents, to your friends. And get on Facebook, Laffey Radio. But we're done for the day. We'll be back tomorrow with a great guest. Steve Laffey checking out. Bye.
You've been listening to Steve Laffey's Fixing America radio program on the Laffey Radio Network. Fixing America is broadcast Monday through Friday afternoons at 3 p.m. right here at www.laffeyradio.com. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or account of this broadcast without the express written consent of Laffey Network, LLC is prohibited.